where she is entertaining other people in the bedroom. He enjoyed having the freak-offs.
She's being asked specifically about the drug use.
She is clearly excited about freak-off.
The courtroom fell into a tense, breathless silence as Cassie gave harrowing testimony, recounting how she was brutally raped by Diddy after refusing to take part in one of his notorious freak-off parties. That silence didn't last long. Moments later, Diddy suddenly leapt from his seat, his expression contorted with fury. According to witnesses, the judge was forced to warn him sternly, even threatening removal from the courtroom, as security personnel visibly prepared to intervene. Day before the trial has taken a shocking and dramatic turn, one that no one saw coming. We have the exclusive breakdown of what Cassie said that sent Diddy over the edge.
I think the defense naturally is trying to poke holes sort of in some of the earlier testimony that Sean Combs was always the person in control and that Cassie Ventura was forced into these situations. So the defense all day have really been laying out a lot of text messages and a lot of emails that tell the story of a very complicated relationship from the very beginning. In fact, in 2007, they showed the jurors an email where Ventura basically says after 2 months of having a kiss with Combs and saying that's when their relation started after her 21st birthday. Mm-hmm. After their relation started 2 months later, jurors saw an email where she basically says, I love you. I'm so excited to be a part of this relationship with you. How she had plans of a future with him. So they're laying out somebody that was excited about the idea of being with Sean Combs at 21 years old and her future plans, but also a little bit of jealousy. In that same email, she makes reference to wondering if maybe Combs should have went after her friend, Carrie, and then said maybe you should have went with Carrie because she could help you or, you know, do the things that you want her to do or something to that effect. But she also said, which I thought was really interesting in that email, Rachel, is I want to be the woman that you want me to be. Like almost this idea of teach me what it is I need to be to keep you happy. And that was 2 months into the relationship.
About how she had to go to rehab. And one really important note as we ended yesterday, Nicole, was this really sad moment that she talked about how even after she left Sean Combs, even after their relationship ended, and she was with her husband and had 2 babies, she's on her 3rd right now, 9 months pregnant, she said that she felt suicidal thinking about the life that she had with Sean Combs, and even asked her husband at one point saying, you've got this, right? If something were to happen to me, you would be able to take care of these children. And said she tried to and wanted to walk out into traffic and that her husband had to stop her. That is the long-standing PST that she has had from this relationship.
What does a man worth $900 million do when his darkest secrets are laid bare in a courtroom? If you're Sean Diddy Combs, you lose control. Completely, it all happened faster than anyone expected. Day 4 of the trial was the most anticipated yet. The courtroom was packed wall to wall, journalists in every seat, phones in hand, ready to break the next explosive headline. Legal teams whispered and shuffled papers nervously. Everyone knew Cassie was about to deliver the most damning testimony yet. What nobody knew was how Diddy would react. I spoke to 3 people seated just feet away when the moment unraveled. Each one described the same shocking transformation. 1 minute he looked calm, almost disinterested, said a courtroom employee. The next, his eyes were wild. His entire body went stiff, like he was about to lunge at someone. Witnesses say Diddy's fists clenched so tightly. His knuckles turned white. He started breathing heavier, rocking in his chair, tension radiating from his body. Security noticed too. Officers subtly repositioned themselves closer to the defense table, eyes locked on him. Then, it happened that as Cassie began to recount a particularly graphic moment of what she alleges Diddy forced her to do, he suddenly exploded. He jumped to his feet, his chair toppling backwards with a loud crash against the courtroom railing. Gasps filled the air, but it wasn't a sound that shook the room. It was his voice. "That's a lie," he yelled, pointing directly at Cassie. "You know that's a damn lie." His voice rang through the courtroom like a gunshot. His attorneys scrambled to contain him, grabbing his arms, trying to pull him back down. The judge pounded his gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order in my courtroom!" he shouted. But Diddy wasn't finished. He shook off his lawyers, eyes blazing, ignoring their desperate whispers. One was even overheard saying, "Sean, stop. This is exactly what they want." The judge locked eyes with Diddy, Voice ice cold and firm MR. Combs, control yourself or you will be removed. This is your only warning. For a moment, it looked like Diddy might be escorted out in handcuffs. His chest heaved with rapid breaths, sweat soaking through his tailored designer suit. His expensive tie hung crooked, his face glistening till he looked broken. Unhinged .1 music executive who's known him for years said afterward, "I've seen him mad." But that was something else. He snapped. He lost it. Another witness described the scene like watching someone unravel in real time. His whole image fell apart in front of us. All that money, all that power, none of it could stop this moment. The judge called a 15-minute recess. Cassie, who had gone silent during the outburst, remained composed and still. She didn't flinch. When court resumed, Diddy sat quietly, but the room had changed. The jury had seen everything. The mask had slipped. The man who once controlled entire industries had just shown the world a glimpse of the chaos beneath his carefully crafted persona. IT was a moment no one in that courtroom will forget, the moment a powerful man realized he might finally be held accountable.
Her voice is low at times. The defense did tell her if it's too much, I can read them. But there were many times early on this morning where she read some of those explicit details where she is clearly excited about Freak Off and talks about entertaining other people in the bedroom.
And what has Diddy's demeanor been in this cross-examination as well?
There was a moment where Sean Combs was nodding in agreement when they brought up a message that he sent her where he said, you know, one of my favorite times of the freak-offs is when we're able to make love after. And then she responds, that's the same for me. Now, what's interesting here is that does match what she told prosecutors or what she's been telling the jury all along, which is she did this and she said, but she really wanted to spend time with him after the fact. So he was shaking his head at this message where he's almost, I guess, agreeing that he did say, without him saying it, he enjoyed having the freak-offs and then having sex with her after the fact. And her saying, I agree with you. I love having sex with you after, too.
Cassie Ventura today looking a little more subdued. She's got her hair pulled back. She's wearing a blazer. And she's being asked right now by the defense. This is the first day of cross-examination. She's being asked specifically about the drug use in the relationship that she had for all those years with Sean Combs. What drugs they took, how much they took, what they felt like when they were on them, what they felt like when they were coming off of them, what the mood was like. Anna Estevado is conducting the cross-examination for Sean Combs' defense. And we did get this clue from the opening statements that the defense really does want to paint her.
So what exactly are these freak-offs that pushed Diddy to his breaking point in court? The name might sound like something pulled from a hedonistic party scene, but what Cassie described on the stand was far darker, more disturbing, and deeply traumatic. When she first began her testimony, it sounded like stories from the typical world of celebrity excess. Luxury penthouses in New York, sprawling Miami mansions, private islands where the rich could party in peace. But her tone shifted when she got to what happened after most of the guests had left. He'd make sure I was drinking all night, Cassie testified, her voice barely above a whisper in the stunned courtroom. Then he'd bring in men, paid male sex workers, and force them to have sex with them while he watched. You could feel the air being sucked out of the room. The jury leaned in as she explained that Diddy didn't just passively observe. He directed every moment like it was one of his music videos. He gave explicit instructions on what to do, how to do it, and sometimes even joined in. Other times, he simply filmed, using either his phone or, shockingly, professional-grade camera equipment. And this wasn't a one-time nightmare. According to Cassie, this happened at least 30 times over the course of 5 years. Often, she said, she was too intoxicated or drugged to give proper consent. Cassie claimed Diddy would secretly spike her drinks with substances that made her feel loose, detached, like I wasn't even there. The most chilling part of her testimony came when she produced printed text messages in one message from 2014. Diddy allegedly wrote ***, you better show up tonight or that video from Vegas goes online tomorrow. Another message read, nobody will work with you in this industry if they see what I have on my phone. You could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. Cassie then described how these so-called freak-offs left her feeling broken. I felt worthless afterward, she said. Like I wasn't human anymore. Just something he owned, something he could use however he wanted. But what really seemed to send Diddy into a rage was when Cassie began naming names. She listed specific hotels, dates, and even named several celebrities who she claimed were present at these events. She clarified that most left before the coercive acts began, but their knowledge of the event's nature, she suggested, was not as innocent as it seemed. And then came the most damning accusation of all. Cassie claimed Diddy had created an entire system, calculated and intentional. He allegedly drugged her without her knowledge. He paid the male sex workers extra to keep quiet. And most importantly, he recorded everything, building a vault of videos he used to control her. Asterisk, asterisk, these videos were my prison. Asterisk, asterisk, Cassie told the court. Asterisk, asterisk, every time I tried to leave, he'd remind me what would happen if those videos got out, how my family would see them, how my career would be over. This wasn't just a story of fame gone wrong. It wasn't even just about abuse. According to Cassie, these freak-offs were part of a deliberate campaign to trap, manipulate, and emotionally destroy her, all while maintaining an image of power, wealth, and invincibility. And when those secrets finally spilled out in a court of law, in front of jury cameras and a world watching, Diddy's carefully curated mask cracked. The truth, Cassie suggested, was never meant to see the light of day. And now that it has, the consequences may finally be catching up to him.
You know, they have their notebooks in their hand. They're coming in. They're very alert. And I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura. And also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, two of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through. But I think that's something that you think about on both sides, you know, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, you know, their third child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother and her husband, Alex Fine, I think it's difficult on both sides. Seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages. So he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but that the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.
We're hearing the judge wants Cassie off the stand tomorrow. Will the prosecution and the defense get equal time?
Yeah, as long as there aren't any additional motions, I think that is the goal, to have her off the stand by tomorrow.
Why do you think that? What's the reasoning behind wanting her off the stand tomorrow?
In the very beginning, Rachel, they told us that she would likely be on that stand 2 to 3 days. So here we are.
What made even the most seasoned courtroom reporters look away during Cassie's testimony? Asterisk, asterisk. It was what came after she explained the freak-offs. When she described what happened tonight, she finally said no. The mood in the courtroom shifted instantly. You could feel it. Cassie's lawyer gently handed her a tissue as she took a long breath, her eyes fixed not on Diddy, but on the jury. That's when she began recounting a night in March 2018, a moment that silenced the entire room. We were in Miami for a music event. Asterisk, asterisk, she began. Diddy had arranged another one of his so-called sessions, this time with 2 men Cassie didn't recognize. But unlike previous nights, she was sober. She had an early interview the next morning and didn't drink. I told him I wasn't doing it. Asterisk, asterisk, she said, her voice trembling. First, Diddy laughed, brushing it off like a joke. But when he saw she was serious, everything changed. He called me ungrateful. Asterisk, asterisk, she told the court. Said after everything he did for my career, this was the least I could do. Cassie left the party and went back to her hotel room alone. That's when the nightmare truly began. Around 3:00 a.m., she said she was startled by loud banging on her door. Security camera footage in the hotel. Timestamp 3:17 a.m. Confirmed Diddy was outside her room. I opened the door to tell him to leave. Asterisk, asterisk, she continued. But he pushed his way in. What followed was horrifying. Cassie described in haunting detail how Diddy allegedly threw her onto the bed, tore off her clothes, and raped her while she begged him to stop. I kept saying, "Please stop. You're hurting me." Asterisk, asterisk, she said, holding back tears. He told me to shut up, said this was what I deserved for embarrassing him in front of those people. 2 jurors visibly recoiled at this point. One older woman on the panel quietly removed her glasses and wiped her eyes. Even veteran court reporters, people who've covered murder trials, organized crime, and years of abuse cases, looked down at their notepads rather than watch her continue. Then came the evidence that Cassie's attorney presented medical records from a Miami urgent care clinic, dated March 9, 2018, the morning after the alleged assault. The documents noted bruises on her wrists, thighs, and neck, along with injuries consistent with sexual assault. Graphic photos of those injuries were shown privately to the jury. One male juror asked for a short recess after seeing them, which the judge quickly granted. Cassie explained that she didn't tell the truth to the doctor. I told him I fell during a dance rehearsal. Asterisk, asterisk, she said. I was too ashamed, too afraid. I knew no one would believe me over him. She hid the bruises from friends and family under makeup and long sleeves. A former assistant would later testify that she had helped Cassie conceal injuries like that on multiple occasions. What makes Cassie's account so difficult to dismiss isn't just her words. It's the paper trail she brought with her. Text messages to friends hinting at abuse. Hotel surveillance footage placing Diddy at her door. Medical documentation of her injuries. Photographs the jury couldn't unsee. This was no longer a matter of, he said, she said. When asked why she never went to police, her answer was short and devastating. Asterisk, asterisk. He told me that if I ever tried to report him, he would release the freak-off videos and destroy my life completely. Asterisk, asterisk, she said. Asterisk, asterisk, and I believed him. It was the kind of testimony that changes the temperature of a courtroom and leaves even the most hardened observers shaken.
She says she was forced to participate in, of course, those freak-offs. The defense began establishing the love that Combs and Cassie had at the beginning of their relationship, how things really started, then escalated. They showed an exhibit of email exchanges that included messages from Combs that read, quote, "It makes me so happy that you would fly from Atlanta for me." And then Cassie replying, "I am a very lucky woman. I would fly wherever you needed me." And other exchanges that said, "Going to sleep now so it can be tomorrow faster." And then Combs replying, "I love my baby." Cassie saying on the stand that she got to see a private version of Combs that the public and even his own family didn't see, revealing she believed that Combs truly loved her. The defense also trying to establish there was nothing coercive about these freak-offs between the two that she has been describing for jurors these last few days. They've repeatedly described that Combs' sexual preferences as part of a swingers lifestyle, and that Cassie seemed eager, in fact, to participate in these freak-offs. Like another message that read, "I'm always ready to freak off." That's a quote. And another one that said, "When we used to freak off, when we were so in love, there was no question asked. It just felt right." And when asked why she agreed to the freak-off, she said, "I just wanted to make him happy." Cassie testifying that she would help get supplies for the freak-offs. She would call the drugs that she took vitamins. All of this to show she had an agency in these sexual activities.
Who was watching when one of music's most powerful men completely lost control in public pretty much everyone who matters in this case. As the courtroom wasn't just crowded. It was packed with people whose opinions actually count. In the front row sat Cassie's parents and younger sister. According to someone who had a clear view of them throughout the proceedings, their faces told the story no words could. When Cassie described the abuse, her mother closed her eyes tightly, holding her husband's hand so hard her knuckles turned white. But when Diddy erupted in rage mid-testimony, something shifted. It wasn't relief, and it certainly wasn't triumph. It was confirmation. They were watching in real time what they had feared was happening behind closed doors for years. And you wouldn't believe who was there to support Diddy. 3 heavyweight music executives from his past, sitting directly behind his legal team. These weren't B-list producers or hangers-on. These were decades-long collaborators, industry veterans who helped shape his career. When Diddy exploded, their reactions were revealing. One instantly began texting, probably crisis control. Another stared straight ahead, frozen, refusing to react. The third quietly covered his face with his hand. All three slipped out a side door immediately after court adjourned, avoiding the swarm of reporters waiting outside. But here's what most people don't know. Security had already been tightened ***. That morning, the bailiff later confirmed that 2 additional officers were stationed in the courtroom because Diddy had shown signs of increasing agitation, his leg constantly twitching under the table, harsh whispers to his lawyers, mood swings that kept even seasoned staff on edge. We were watching him closely, ***, the bailiff told me, even before he snapped. And snap he did. The jury saw everything. One middle-aged juror with short gray hair was scribbling so forcefully during Diddy's outburst that she broke her pencil tip. According to a legal analyst I spoke with afterward, this is a kind of meltdown that can destroy a defense. Jurors aren't just listening to evidence. They're watching the person accused. When they act like the accusations are true, it sticks. The press section was packed, shoulder to shoulder. Reporters from TMZ, Rolling Stone, Billboard, ABC, CNN. All of them watched as Diddy lost control. He's been known for his entire career. One veteran entertainment journalist said it best. I've covered celebrity trials for 15 years. That was the moment Diddy's polished image shattered. You can't unsee it. Even the judge's clerk looked stunned. The court stenographer never stopped typing, documenting every word Diddy shouted for the official record. And that's what makes this moment different. This wasn't a leaked video or secondhand story. This wasn't a private confrontation or behind-the-scenes drama. This was Diddy losing control in courtroom, in front of the judge who will guide the jury, the jurors who will decide his fate, the reporters who will tell the public what really happened to executives who stood by his side, and Cassie's family, who've waited years for visas, one observer said to me outside the courthouse. For a man who spent decades controlling his image down to the smallest detail, this was his worst nightmare. He finally showed everyone who he really is.
You know, it's the man has no class. He has no kindness in his dark, dark heart. And he's depraved. That's my opinion. This is a depraved, disgusting individual about whom I wish to hear nothing after this trial is done. The question is he a criminal? You know, is he basically akin to a mob boss running several criminal enterprises? And while it's very clear to me he is a depraved, disgusting person, we have to prove that he violated the law. I actually think it's going to be pretty easy, but I can see what the defense is doing here, trying to say, all right, he has these, quote, freak-offs, you know, weird, kinky group sex in Hollywood. That's not an illegal thing. It happens all the time.
Cassie Ventura, where she revealed that after the relationship had ended with Sean Combs, there was an incident where he raped her. She talked about how later on she had PTSD flashbacks of her experience with him, of the freak-offs. And at one point she came home and told her husband while their kids were sleeping that she just couldn't take it anymore and thought about walking into traffic.
If you don't have the consent of the women or the men, as the case may be, it is illegal. But okay, we're going to argue over whether they were willing participants. It's almost like a Harvey Weinstein situation where he's going to say they willingly took drugs.
Another thing we learned about yesterday was her drug addiction. She said that she had an addiction to opiates, Errol.
They're going to say, absolutely not. He drugged me against my will. Maybe there were drugs in that baby oil, maybe in another way, but I definitely didn't consent to being drugged or to being raped or sodomized by P. Diddy.
And singer Dawn Richard from the girl group Danity Kane, she is likely on the famous people list because she's one of Diddy's many accusers.
Yeah.
Not in his criminal case, but she sued him civilly last year, claiming that she saw him abuse Cassie, his girlfriend, and that she herself was sexually assaulted, deprived of food, and cheated out of money that she was owed. Guess what? You're going to hear from her attorney in just a hot minute. But first, I want to bring in News Nation correspondent Caitlin Becker, who's outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Caitlin's been covering this case gavel to gavel. Okay, first of all, Let's just start with the drip, drip, drip of all the names, because the internet is really on fire. What happened today?
You know, Ashley, a lot of the same things. You get asked these same exact questions about these celebrities with no real context as to why. And you really hit the nail on the head a minute ago when you said jury selection's kind of boring, but not in the Diddy case. Most prospective jurors who come into jury selection have never heard of the defendant, let alone have an opinion of them. But what we heard today was prospective jurors who were excluded because they flat out said they don't like Diddy going into it. They don't have a favorable opinion. One guy said he believed Diddy has enough money to buy his way out of jail, so those jurors immediately excluded. There was also some laughs in the courtroom today from the attorneys and the judge when one prospective juror said that he couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't be able to smoke marijuana for all 8 to 10 weeks of the trial, so that person was excluded. But by the end of the day, they've added 10 more people to that pool of 45 that they're trying to get.
What specific moment made Diddy finally crack after days of staying calm in court wasn't just what Cassie said. IT was what she played for the first 3 days of the trial. Diddy was a picture of control, even as former employees testified about witnessing abuse. Even when financial records revealed he'd paid hotel staff to stay quiet about trash rooms. Even as Cassie's therapist read chilling notes from sessions dating back to 2016, through all of it, Diddy sat back, composed, calculated, occasionally even smirking when his legal team landed a point. But everything changed on day 4 according to court transcripts. The moment his mask finally cracked happened at exactly 2:17 p.m. that is, when Cassie began describing a phone call she got from Diddy, right after she told him she wanted out. He called me around 3:00 a.m., *, Cassie testified. He was furious, talking fast. He said if I ever told anyone about the freak-offs or what happened in Miami, he'd make sure my family paid for it. The courtroom fell silent. Then Cassie's lawyer stood and said, "Your Honor, we'd like to play Exhibit 47. Diddy's legal team immediately objected. But the judge overruled them. The record had already been approved during discovery, and no one knew what was about to be played. That's when the bombshell dropped that Cassie's team had been saving their most powerful piece of evidence, a recorded phone call from 2018. Somehow, Cassie had managed to record Diddy during one of his threats. The audio wasn't crystal clear, but what came through was unmistakable Diddy's voice, threatening her. *, you think anybody's going to believe you? *, I run this industry. Who do you think they'll side with, me or you? I'll make sure you never work again. *, and your mom's nursing job? Your sister's college scholarship? Gone. *, I know people everywhere. * witnesses say Diddy's entire expression changed on the spot. His eyes widened. His jaw tightened. He turned to his lawyer and urgently whispered, clearly panicked. Even his attorney looked blindsided. That audio recording destroyed their entire defense strategy. When the clip ended, Cassie turned to Diddy and spoke directly to him for the first time. He told me no one would believe me because he owned the music industry, and he would destroy my life. That was the breaking point. Diddy jumped up, shouting that was a lie. He lost all control. But no one could unhear what they had just heard. IT wasn't just a word anymore. IT was his threats, his voice, his power trip. Recorded and played in front of everyone that a legal analyst in the courtroom later said, that moment flipped the case. You can't defend yourself when your own voice proves the accusation. That audio killed any chance of dismissing this as a money grab. * the judge called for order. But the damage was already done. Everyone in that room had just heard how Diddy really talked behind closed doors. They heard a man who believed his fame and fortune made him untouchable. They saw his confidence vanish in real time. What began as another tense day in court became what observers now call the final nail in the coffin of Diddy's career. Legal experts say this trial is no longer just about civil damages. With that audio, plus Cassie's testimony, the physical evidence, and Diddy's outburst, criminal charges are now a serious possibility, as one person whispered as we left courtroom. We just watched a man realize, right in front of us, that his money and power might not save him this time. *,